I mean, this lighting is just not ideal, but what can you do? It's been snowing for the whole day, and now it's almost sunset time, so... Secondly, I just drank a whole cup of black tea, and my whole body is shaking because I'm not used to caffeine anymore. I haven't had coffee since the end of August, and it's March now, and I can just feel my heart racing, and I'm like out of breath because of the caffeine. Anyway, we're not here today to talk about snow or my caffeine tolerance. We're here to talk about books. There's this book tag going around. It's the book tag that Steph Bauer came up with, and it's literally called book recommendation tag. It has 15 questions, and I struggled. I've been thinking long and hard about my list. I don't know, most likely tomorrow or even while editing this video, I maybe would want to change my answers, but this is what we have right now. Let's just start. So the first question is, a book you tell people is your favorite. First up, the very hard question to answer. I think my go-to answer usually is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I think I was in 9th grade when I read that, and oh my god, I was heartbroken, I was mad, I was also obsessed. So I think maybe I would say to people who I don't really know what my favorite book is, I would say The Great Gatsby. And then in brackets I put If Cats Disappeared from the World by Genki Kawamura, and also The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. It might be those because I read those last year. They were my 5-star reads. They're in the forefront of my mind. But yeah, I think those are my current favorite reads that I would tell others that are also my favorite reads. But yeah, The Great Gatsby I think is like, I don't know, it's something about that book. It kind of changed my life. I don't know if for better or for worse, but definitely in some capacity changed my life. Then the next is a book that is your guilty pleasure. So I don't have a specific book that is my guilty pleasure, but hockey romances. Any kind of hockey romance, I'm instantly reading this. Especially if it's hockey romance and it's like fake dating, or it's like hockey romance, enemies to lovers, any kind of hockey romance. Oh my god. The only one I don't like is like when there's a pregnancy trope involved or a single parent trope. Those I stay away from, but the others, oh my god, like it hits so hard. What were the last? Okay, so I mean the most classic one is The Deal by, who is it by? L. Kennedy, I want to say. Yeah, L. Kennedy wrote The Deal. It's the off-campus series. I read the first 3. I haven't read the last one because there's a child involved and I don't like that. What else for hockey romances? I feel like there's so many that I can't think of any right now. But yeah, any kind of hockey romance. And then also like ice skating. I really like ice skating. From Look Up With Love by Mariana Zapata. Oh my god. I read that in one day. I was obsessed. I loved it. I've heard some controversial things about the author, but the book itself, it's such a slow burn, and it's more about ice skating and less about the romance. But yeah, so any kind of hockey romance, oh my god, and also ice skating. But because I've read so many hockey romances, I feel like I'm now kind of branching out and reading other sports romances like baseball, basketball. I don't really like basketball as a sport, so I don't really care. And also like I don't really care about sports. Like I don't think I've ever watched hockey in my life. No, I know I have not watched hockey in my life, but something about those romances is so good. Anyway, yeah, so hockey romances and now also other kind of sports romances. Okay, the next is a book everyone loved but you didn't. I put down 3 books for this and I'm gonna get cancelled as soon as I say that. But first is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Now listen, I love the story, I love the concept, I think it's a beautiful story. However, I DNF'd it because of the writing style. It wasn't for me. I was so excited to read this. I'm maybe I have to give this another chance. I don't know, but I just didn't like it. Something was off, and I don't know what. I feel bad even saying that because I know it's so many people's favorite book. However, I didn't have the best relationship with it. Okay, so the next one is Normal People by Sally Rooney. That one I read and I hated it. I read the whole thing and I hated it. It made me so mad. The whole book made me furious, and I don't know. For that reason I also have not watched the show, even though I've heard people rave about that show. However, I really want to give Sally Rooney another chance and see if I maybe like her other books. But Normal People, it just was not for me. I'm sorry. And the third book, I feel like everyone loved but I didn't, was Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. That book just, no, I did not like it. Great vibes, like surfing, rich kids, so on. But something about the book really irked me, and I just, no. Okay, so a book you read the fastest, I put Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. And the only reason I put that book is because I read that in one sitting and it hooked me. So I guess it makes sense. Read it, it's good. I have nothing else to say about it. Okay, and then a book that deserves more hype. With this one, it was also very hard to come up with an answer. In the end, I put My Pen is a Wing of a Bird, new fiction by Afghan women. And yeah, that's it. I feel like everyone needs to read that short story collection, and it's heartbreaking, and just read it. I feel like maybe it was like popular for 2 minutes, but I feel like everyone needs to read it, so I'm gonna say that that book needs more hype. Okay, then a book that is becoming a movie or TV show, I put All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. It's a heartbreaking book that I read in high school. Not gonna lie, don't remember the details of that book, but I know it's becoming a 4-part miniseries on Netflix and I'm super excited. It talks about Second World War and one of the main characters is a blind girl, and it's a thick book, but I think it's worth reading. But also, like, check the trigger warnings. And next is a book you have reread the most. It's such a random book. It's called Mixed Signals by B.K. Borson, and it's part of the Love Light series. It's the 3rd book. I haven't read the other ones. I know that Love Light Farms was super popular during Christmas time. I'm gonna read the first 2. I mean, it's a romance, and I just sometimes go back and read a romance that I've read before, and this was my latest reread. It's not my favorite, it's not my least favorite, but it's just vibes. It's just vibes all around. The main girl is a baker, and the guy, I think is a teacher, maybe, and it's just like friends to lovers. They do this thing where they go on dates, and I don't know. That was just my latest reread. I feel like I don't usually reread books, but that one I did. Whenever I don't know what book to pick up next, I kind of just read this for the vibes. And then also I put Harry Potter, the whole series. I read the whole series at least 10 times and I'm not gonna stop. I know there are problems with J.K. Rowling, I know, but just Harry Potter was my childhood and it's my personality trait. So, and then another like romance book, I don't know why, but I guess I just like rereading romance books. I don't know what that says about me, but I put Marriage for One by Ella Macy, and that book is just also vibes. It's like marriage of convenience and nothing really happens. The main girl, do not remember the name of her, she wants to own a cafe and she marries this lawyer because in order for her to get this cafe, she needs to be married. It's good. That was my like second latest reread. Okay, then we have a book from a genre you don't typically read, and that was the hardest one for me to answer, and for that I put The Hollow by Agatha Christie. It's part of the Hercule Poirot series, one of those books, and I just remember reading it. I don't read crime ever. I'm never in a mood. But I remember I read The Hollow by Agatha Christie and I really liked it. And also I do like the TV adaptation for this. That's like I think one of my favorite Poirot murder cases that he investigates. It's good. Read it. Next, we have a book that deserves all the hype it gets. I put The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. Do I need to say more? It's a classic. Everyone needs to read that. It's a dystopia and it's incredible. That's all. The next one is a book you usually recommend when asked to give a recommendation. For that, I have 3, because when people ask me for recommendations, I first of all need to know like what they're into. So I don't know, it's always hard to recommend other people books, but the first one is actually a short story that I read like 7 years ago at this point, and it's called The Rich Boy by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I still think about that short story. I don't know why, but it's about the rich guy and his life, and I was reading it on the plane and I started crying, like fully hyperventilating, crying. It broke me. I think it's my favorite short story of all time. I think it's also good to maybe read short stories when you first want to get into reading, because they're easy and quick, and there are like different genres of short stories as well. I love short stories, so I would recommend that. Then I would also recommend 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. It's a classic, everyone's read this, and yeah, I think you can't go wrong with 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And then the third book that I put on here is My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Odessa Moshevk. And I put this on here because I have recommended this book to 2 of my closest friends. And yeah, it's about the girl who lives in New York City, and she just kind of wants to take a year off and sleep. And when I decided to read this, my assumption was that it's just gonna be vibes of like her sleeping. But there are actually plot lines, and the ending, yeah. Then a book that has your favorite character. For that, I put The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov, and the Satan from that book, he's called Voland. I just really like him as a character. He's very complex. I mean, all of the characters in Master and Margarita are complex characters. And Rolling Stones also has a song called Sympathy for the Devil that's inspired by Master and Margarita, and it's one of my favorite songs. And yeah, Voland, something about him. He's unhinged, he's crazy, but I also like him, and I don't think he's the worst character in that book. He just like decides to go to St. Petersburg and decides to wreak some havoc and kind of watch it unfold. And he's like manipulative, but at the same time, I feel like in some situations he is generous. He's one crazy character, and I do love him. Right, now we have a book you wish you could live in. For that, I chose Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. I would love to go hang out with the Red Queen and just paint some roses, and hang out with the Mad Hatter and just shapeshift and just live in that universe. I feel like it would be fun. But also, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland is such a good book. So the next category is a book you thought you would hate but ended up loving. So listen, love is a very strong word for this book, and I'm not saying I love that book, but while I was reading it, I was thoroughly surprised that I wasn't hating it. And that book is Women by Charles Bukowski. Oh god, it's such a... I mean, the whole... Charles Bukowski overall, I mean, it's an acquired taste, let's say that. And also I think I didn't hate this book as much as I thought I would, is because I read that in English and not in Estonian. Because I was curious and I opened up the Estonian version, the Estonian translation. Listen, I could never read that. Like, the language, it's so vulgar and I feel like it's disrespectful for my mother tongue, so I think me reading that in English kind of softened the blow of the disgustingness of it. I'm definitely not saying that I love that book, but I didn't hate it like I thought I would. Harry Styles has talked about Charles Bukowski before. If you listen to like From the Dining Table by Harry Styles, I think you would understand. And I also tried to read his poetry. Love is a Dog from Hell. No. I'm sorry, but no. It's an acquired taste that I do not have. Maybe someday I will read some of his other works, but not anytime soon. Then we have a book that made you cry, and I'm going with a very basic answer, and it's All Quiet on the Western Front by Remarque. I read that in high school. This book broke me. I was also on a plane. Why am I always crying on a plane? Anyway, for this I was also on a plane while I was reading it. Bad idea. I do not read this on a plane. And it just broke me. It was so sad, and I never want to read this again, and I never want to experience it again. But it's also a very important book. It's about the First World War. I cry easily, and a lot of books make me cry, but this one just hit different, I think. And then lastly is a book you wish you could read for the first time, and for that I put 1984 by George Orwell. And I wish I could read this book without like knowing what the meaning Big Brother is or any of the other references from this book. This book is one of the reasons why I wanted to study political science and international relations. So it kind of changed my life in some ways. And I love that book. It also broke me. I just remember after I finished this book needing a moment. I was also crying. I guess just books make me cry in general, but this just... I sat down for a while and I contemplated life after that. So yeah, I think I wish I could read this for the first time again. So these were my picks for the tag. Most likely, like tomorrow I would change my answers, but today these are my answers. And it's also hard to remember all the books you've read in your life. Thanks for watching. And I will hopefully see you soon. Bye!